All right, here we go. Welcome everyone to this extra special episode. I have a guest here today, and this is one of our clients, Sarah Weefeld. It's so great to have you here tonight, Sarah.
Great to be here.
Yeah, so I wanted to have Sarah come on and basically tell her story because I know that a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not really sure if I need help, or I'm not sure, what that help might look like, or what it's like to get help, or what it's like to get help, particularly by a career coach as well. And also because Sarah, your story and your story of transformation has just been it's been so inspirational to us to see not only the career journey, but also the personal transformation. Like for Rob and I, like that's really what we're going for. And yeah, by the way, you get some career wins, by the way, as well.
Mm.
So why don't you just go ahead and do a quick introduction to yourself, and then we can kind of hop into your story.
Yeah. So again, Sarah Weefeld. I'm a product manager by trade. I am currently working at a software company, and I've been in tech, in one way or another for the last like five-ish. Well, I guess more than that if you count the freelancing I did before that. But software was my way out of a career path that wasn't working for me. I was working in the music industry for about a decade and then was like, maybe it's time for a change.
Yeah. Yeah. So you chose tech. And
Mhm.
did you go right into product management, or was there something else in between there?
Well, my very first job, my very first job in music was receptionist. But um, after I was a receptionist, and I was a sales rep for a few months, that didn't go great for me. Not cut out for sales, it turns out. But then my first like real job that I realized was like my dream job at the time was a product management job at a record label.
Okay.
And that was one of those magic moments where I just walked into somebody's office and was like, oh, you just signed to this band? Oh, you should do this, this, and this. Like, I think that'd be really cool. Okay, bye. And then like a week later, my boss then was like, hey, so how about you be a product manager and you're going to work with this band? I'm like, sure.
Well,
And
so
then,
that was your bridge, right? Like that
yeah,
was your bridge from the music world into the tech world, was to do
yeah.
product management for record label. That's
Well,
awesome.
I mean, that's what I sort of used. So that record label actually got closed down, which is also when I realized I probably needed to figure out how to get out of music. Because I was laid off when I was 23 and nobody wanted to speak to me, and it was 2008. Uh, so I spent the rest of the time in between just trying to get back into product management, which ended up being this like huge twisty turny thing that involved me going back to school and getting out of the industry altogether and moving into another one. Um, so that like, but product has always been sort of my North Star.
Yeah, yeah. And it's really cool that you refer to it as your dream job, right? You
Yeah.
discovered your dream job. And that's awesome. That was one of those magical moments.
Mhm.
And what I'm curious about was what was going on, like what wasn't work. So it sounds like there's a lot that was working in your career in terms of, okay, I know that I wanted to get out of music and move into tech, and you found your dream job, you found product management. But
Mhm.
then speaking of twists and turns, there were some other twists and turns that were going on in your career. So what wasn't working that led you to say, oh man, I really need to do a major overhaul here, or at least like really fix some of these challenges and overcome them?
Yeah. So that podcast that you did recently about how being comfortable can actually be the absolute worst possible thing for you. I felt very personally attacked.
It wasn't just you. Okay, trust me, it was not. I actually sometimes I do have particular clients in mind, or prospective clients
Uh,
when I'm doing that. But that was more of a collective,
oh yeah.
shout out to
Mm.
everyone.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, it feels like a very personal story, but it's really the story that everybody shares. Um, so I was doing just fine. I had a good job. Um, Things were perfectly adequate. Um, but when you just spend time, not really getting done what you really want to get done and not really having a clear idea of even what that is, um, you may not really consciously realize it, but there's some part of your soul that does. And so after about 3 years at my last job, I burned out.
Okay.
I was just toast. I didn't know who I was anymore, what I wanted. I was like, well, I know I need to continue to earn money, but do I keep doing this exact same job that I had? I don't know. Um, I just felt very lost, you know. And I, through networking and the advice of some good friends, I found a new job in product management. So I was very excited about that, but it was also like, okay, I got here. I know that I am sort of climbing out of this burnout thing. I need to figure out how I'm going to make this work for me long term.
Yeah.
And, you know, and also just sort of knowing theoretically that if I'm trying to do things that I've never done before, the things that got me to this point are not going to get me there. So with that, I think I just sort of serendipitously got one of your Facebook ads. And I was like, okay, sure, I'll check out the webinar. Well, see where this goes, you know. And then afterwards, you know, I had a phone call with you, and like within an hour she's like, oh yeah, okay, no, we're gonna do this. And not only is this within the realm of possibility, but it's like right here.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. To see that possibility and to know and to have everything just kind of come together. It's such an awesome feeling. I know that it
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's hit the pause button though. So we will get back there.
Oh,
We're going to stick a pin in
okay.
there.
Oh yeah.
Because I know you're not one to shy away from talking about some of the negative aspects of it. Like
Hmm.
what was going on in terms of you said you had mentioned you were burnt out and you
Oh
felt
yeah.
it was toast. And I'd love for you like just to share. Oh, there's Katie.
Sorry. Yeah.
Hi, Katie.
Yeah.
To share, you know, what that experience was like, because I think people will get a lot of value and inspiration out of hearing that. Because as you were
Mhm.
talking, like sometimes it's just this kind of comfortable feeling, and then sometimes that can turn into something worse, and sometimes it doesn't. So, what was that feeling like for you? Like, what was it like on a day-to-day basis to feel too comfortable, and then to have it change into I'm burnt out. I can't take this anymore.
Well, it's all that, well, I'm fine. It could always be worse. You know, it's just bad right now. Sure, you know, my calendar has been completely hijacked and I have no ability to self-direct my time. Um, I'm, you know, not, uh, you know, being a good leader, you know. I had direct reports that I'm, you know, very sure don't have a whole lot of
Mhm.
great things to say about me sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, I was just not doing my best for anyone, you know, especially myself. Um,
Yeah.
and it was resulting in things like I was having physical stress symptoms. You know, there was one day where I actually ended up in urgent care uh, at the end of the day because I hadn't eaten all day because I'd just been chained to my desk trying to just get through because I'm like, well, there's just a lot happening right now and I can just work harder and I'll just work
Mm.
harder and we'll get through this. And then I get up from my desk, realize I'm very dizzy and my head is pounding and won't stop. It turns out it was a massive ocular migraine.
Wow.
And, you know, and I was alone. So I had to like
Oh,
figure
that's
out how to
scary.
get, yeah. And it was just, you know, that was one of those moments where I was just like, okay, like something major in my life has to change. Because I am now physically manifesting that something is wrong.
Right. So, because I was going to ask, was there a moment? Was that the moment for you that said, "Okay, got to change now. Something's got to
Yeah.
give."
Yeah. That was a big one for sure. You know, just realizing this isn't just something that I can just sort of muscle through.
Hmm.
Like something intentional has to be done.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for a lot of people, it's like it takes that moment, but it's also like you know it's kind of it's coming, right? Like
Mhm.
so 2020 hindsight, like you can see back on that now, right? Where it's like I'm not going to let it get that bad, right?
Yeah.
Like because we know that there's going to be physical and emotional kind of results of that, and you
Mhm.
experience that, and it was that moment where you said, okay, I'm gonna
Yeah.
I need to do something differently.
Yeah, because it's so tempting to let yourself become a work martyr, right?
It
Like
is. Yeah.
I just work really hard, you guys. You know,
Mhm.
it's a badge of honor that my time off is never actually time off. I'm always talking to somebody back at the office.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a badge of honor. And that's exactly what I was thinking, and that it's rewarded. Just, yeah,
Hmm.
oh, look at
Yeah.
Sarah. She's working so hard. She's there before anybody gets here, and she's the last one to leave. And oh wow, she's such a hard worker, and that's rewarded. And so that's why it becomes so much easier to just kind of live with that and cope with that until you can't anymore.
Yeah. And because I wasn't showing up for myself, I was in no position to show up for anybody else.
Right. Yeah. And so related to that, so that was the moment for you, was okay, I had to go to urgent care because I got a migraine because I didn't eat because of work. Was there also, though, like specifically related to your career, you had mentioned, wanting to help other people, right? Your
Mhm.
career in life, was there a big why for you? Was it helping other people? Like, was that it for you?
I mean, absolutely part of it. I mean, some of it, I mean, it's kind of selfish, right? Like, I I don't have a whole lot to like fall back on, like this is kind of, sink or swim. Uh, I've been supporting myself for a long time. Um, you know, uh, my family is wonderful. But just there are certain resources like money,
Yeah.
um, that are maybe a little bit harder to come by.
Sure.
And it was just really important to me to be able to create like a career for myself that could enable a life where I don't ever have to worry about family, or just that if somebody needs something, that I could be there to help.
Mhm. Yeah.
And and also realizing like, well, in order to help anybody else, I better make sure that I'm okay.
Mhm.
um, so
Yeah, and I remember on that first call with you, what you were talking about before, where it was like, oh yeah, it just everything came together, and it's like, yes, this is the moment. I see the possibility now. I
mhm,
remember you talking about that aspect of it. That yes, of course, it's for us, right? Like, fill
mhm,
your cup first, put your oxygen mask on first, right? But then it has that positive effect on the other people around you. And I remember how important that
yeah,
was for you. So we started working together, right? And this was like a year and a half ago at this
yeah,
point.
yeah, something like that.
Yeah, yeah. And so I really want your honest take on this, right? So this isn't like, tell us how awesome it was. Tell us it was just all sunshine and rainbows, right? Because I know that there's people out there who are considering hiring a coach or hiring, somebody to help out, whether it's with their career or maybe it's in another aspect of their life, like hiring a life coach.
Mhm,
And one of the, or some other kind of coach, like a health coach or a relationship coach, who knows, right? Um, and one of the resistances, I mean, this is one of the resistance that I had to when I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to hire a marketing coach. It's going to be hard. Like, they're going to tell me all the things that I'm doing wrong, right?
mhm,
And because it is, right, like you said, you were getting too comfortable, and part of it is kind of moving outside of your comfort zone, especially in those first couple of weeks of working with a new coach. So I'd love
mhm.
your honest take on what it was like, especially maybe some of the boundary stretching stuff that it felt like for you, in the beginning when we first started working together.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is those initial sort of clarity and mindset exercises, which I think come at the very early part of the program. Um, those were super uncomfortable for me. They were questions that it's like, of course, I like think about things like, well, what do I want to do? Like, of course, yeah, I know what I want to do, but like, no, actually, I don't. um,
Yeah.
and having to do a lot of that, like, really just like long look in the mirror kind of stuff,
Mhm.
and I remember like just writing my first couple attempts at sentences in that exercise, and I was just like, this feels so dumb. Like, I I feel very dumb right now, but I just kept trying to push through it because I'm like, I mean, having come from another industry, I have been under earning for most of my career, by an order of
Mhm.
magnitude. Um, and I knew it's like, I no longer have the luxury of being like, well, I can just do better in the future. It's like, no, the future is now. I need to do better now. And, I had this conversation with Jen. Um, she seems like somebody who really knows what she's talking about. So maybe I should just step outside of myself and just do this, because what's the worst that happens, right? If I hate it, I don't have to send it to her.
That's right.
Right.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
so I just got through it. And at the end of it, I was just like, oh, that's what that was. It's just that sort of getting inside your own head and like stepping outside of yourself long enough to just give yourself the perspective
Mm-hmm.
of, right, this is actually what I want. This is why I want it. And this is how I'm going to go about doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you shared that, because actually that was a little bit of a surprise to me, because from my perspective, I've always seen you as someone as who's very like self-respected, like looking inside of yourself, right? Self-reflective,
Mm-hmm.
and very like aware of yourself. So it's interesting to me that was the aspect that maybe was the most uncomfortable, especially in the beginning, because I had always thought that you kind of always did that kind of thing. Or maybe it was just never that you were asking yourself those questions in those ways before. And within that context, okay, I'm going to make a change. Oh, wow, this is real now. I can't just say, I know what I'm doing. I really need to kind of dive in and answer these questions for real.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like I, I I was an indoor kid. I'd spent a lot of time reading,
Yeah.
I like to go on like long hikes, sometimes by myself. So it's not like I haven't like spent time like alone with my thoughts or something like that.
Right.
But the closest I can come to trying to explain it is like when you do spend time alone with your thoughts, sometimes you kind of trick yourself into thinking like, no, I know who I am. I know what I want. But like, do you really? Because have you ever really sort of like kept asking yourself why when you think a certain thing? Because it's very easy to sort of let yourself off the hook.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
so having that sort of guided, like, hey, what is it you really want to do here and why? It's like,
Yeah.
oh God, I can't like skirt around this. I just have to sit here and answer it.
Right. And that sort of came together with the realization of I was too comfortable. And if I want to change and I want to move past that, there needs to be something different. So it's almost like
Mhm.
you made that promise to yourself. Okay, this is what it's about. Right? This is what not staying over there in comfort zone land is going to be like.
Mhm.
It's really like it was almost like you were having this inner conversation, a little bit of a battle, but a positive battle with yourself, where it was like, okay, I've done this before and I've sort of just skirted around the questions, but now's the time, now
Mhm.
or never, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so, what else? What else can you share about your experiences from being coached, and being coachable for sure, right? Definitely one of the things that I love about you and that I love working with you. Being
Mhm.
coachable, I mean, to me basically means that you're open, right? That you do exactly what you just said, which is
Mhm.
you have those conversations and you're not afraid to take a look in the mirror. And it's like, okay, this is what they're asking me to do. I'm going to give it a shot. So,
Yeah.
was there anything else as part of that experience that was either surprising to you, or just that you noticed about the being coached?
Um, well, I mean, just the exercise of taking a leap of faith, I think is good for the soul in general, and I highly recommend it. Um, but also, like, I've been self-taught for pretty much everything I've done. Uh, like
Yeah.
I learned how to code. I mean, I went through a sort of like distance learning program, but that was mostly like me, um, just going through material and then trying to figure out what to do with it. And
Mm-hmm.
then, I learned how to make websites for people by going to meetups and just sort of figuring it out. And, um, but now it's like, well, now I'm getting to a point where it's like, it doesn't really matter how many things I've read. And it doesn't really matter how many people I just sort of talk to that are doing the things that I've done, because there are things that I don't and can't know. Um, like, you know, how does someone who has done what I want to do it? You know, also, what is normal in certain circumstances? Because I most certainly have, worked for, an eclectic bunch of companies in my career.
Yeah.
And, um, what normal is, what is expected. I feel like that has always sort of set me or held me back, because I'm like, well, I don't want to ask for, X amount of money more than I'm making right now, because I don't know, is that normal? Do people do that?
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
what's a bonus?
Right.
How does that work? What do you mean people will give you money just to sign the job offer? That's a thing that happens?
Right. Yeah.
Uh, and my parents are always there for me when I call them. But these aren't questions that they could ever answer for me.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure a bunch of my college classmates have always had this stuff all figured out. But it was just never part of my world.
Maybe they don't. Maybe I'm going to guess that
Yeah.
there's plenty of people out there that it was never part of their world too.
Yeah.
So this question on what is normal, like what is, I've just never been exposed to this before. So, oh wow, this is a thing. A bonus is
Yeah.
a thing. Is that what you mean? Like just even
Yeah.
just being exposed to things that you and ideas and potential that you haven't been exposed to before.
Yeah. And even like, what does a manager do?
Ah, yes.
Because
Love that.
when you are given management responsibilities, it, in my experience, has almost never come with a care and feeding of your direct reports type,
Yeah.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there are definitely moments in the program where I was just like, cool, wish I had known that. Okay. Doing better in the
Yeah.
future.
Yeah. And what's tricky about it is that, right, there's no like management 101, leadership 101, although I'm sure there's classes, like there's college classes that talk about leadership 101. And there's certainly leadership theories and there's leadership research out there. There's best practices for sure. But it's all gray. There's
Mhm.
no black and white when it comes to leadership and management or, career advancement. And so that's kind of the tricky part from our perspective to say, okay, what is it that what do we share? What's going to be the most useful to folks? So to hear you say, oh wow, there were things in there that I've never even thought of or got exposed to before, like that's really helpful to hear. And it's in it. What I'm also hearing is that outside perspective, that having that outside perspective for you was particularly valuable because you weren't getting that advice or that guidance anywhere
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. Because in the early part of my career, I had incredible mentorship. I had people who just chose to be kind to me, even though, I mean, I had absolutely no idea how to be a functional human until I was like at least 26. And, um, but there were people who were just incredibly kind to me, and helped me to like figure out like how do I do work,
Yeah.
in a professional environment. Um, but there were just, and then after I left that environment, it was just, oh, I can figure it out,
Mm.
and something, and I did figure it out. I mean, I was doing fine, but
Right.
fine is not great.
Mm. Yeah, and you realize that true potential in yourself,
Mm.
right? Where it's like, okay, fine isn't good enough anymore, and I'm not going to settle for fine. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's awesome. So one other thing that I want to touch on, and then because I want to get up to date, talk
Hmm.
about your wins and what's happened over the last year and a half, because I know you've had some pretty big wins. But one of the other things that I jotted down that you mentioned that I hear time and time again that I think is one of the key things, like creating transformation in your life and in your career, is that leap of faith.
Yeah.
And I know that there's people out there right now on the internet listening, and maybe they're considering taking a leap of faith, right? So maybe it's to hire a coach, but maybe it's for something else too. Maybe it's to, start a relationship or end a relationship or do something different in their career or in their life or move somewhere, make a move across the country or across the world. What was that leap of faith like for you, and what made you decide to take it?
It was real scary, because I was coming off of 3-ish months of being unemployed. My savings were way down. I was just like, is this really an expense that I need to take on right now? And I was like, well, if I don't do it now, when am I going to do it? Am I just going to keep putting this off and just be a completely adequate product professional? Like, I don't want to be entirely adequate. I want to be great. So it was just one of those moments where I was just like, okay, if I can, figure out these couple things, then I'm going to take it as a sign from the universe that, like, yes, I need to keep trotting down this path. And the right things lined up. And I was like, okay, I told myself I would do it. I'm doing it.
So that's what's cool about that, is you said it was scary and I did it. Right.
Yeah.
So like for a lot of people, they think that fear means don't do it. Like I think about thinking about doing it. And then the moment comes, you're at the proverbial precipice. Okay, I can jump or I can turn around. And just as you're about to jump, you feel that fear. And then people make that fear mean, oh, that means I need to turn around.
Right.
And for you, you made it mean, no, I have to do this. I want to do this. This is what's next.
Yeah. And well, what probably helped me there is that I have dismantled and rebuilt my life twice. Once, not entirely my idea. It just kind of happened. But then I was like, oh, I'm actually okay. And then, I moved from New York to California. The relationship I was in did not work out. And it was one of those moments where I was just like, I may end up living in my car, but I have to do this anyway. And I did it.
Yeah.
And I never had to live in my car, because sometimes when you make the right choices for yourself, somehow everything else just lines up.
It does.
And it did. So I was like, okay, like things are not half as dramatic as they were in those other moments. But I still recognize it as one of those just sort of like, I'm at the crossroads points of my life. And now I need to pick where to go. And this is not going to be easy, and it's very scary, but it feels like the right time to do it. So I'm going to do it.
There it is. That's it. That's awesome. And you created some awesome wins for yourself in your career and in your life because of that, because you chose to take that leap of faith. So catch us up. What's happened for you? I know you have wins, but I'm going to have you pick them instead of me just saying, I could, Sarah is awesome. She's upgraded her career in ways that we knew were possible. Perhaps you knew was possible, but now it's like, it's in reality. And I know that there's a lot in front of you as well, in terms of there's more that you want to achieve. So what wins do you want to share with us?
Well, let's see. Well, one of them is I joined a local professional organization for product managers. I just kind of went in like, hey, I want to like meet people. I had gone to a few meetings of theirs like a few years ago. Like I should just sort of like re-up and meet people. And the more I talked to people, the more I was like, oh no, I want to be involved in this. And then I got more involved. And then I was voted onto the board of directors. And I had this like, just little thing in the back of my head, like, God, board of directors, like that's a thing that people are on. How do I do that? So now I'm the first director of professional development, which means I'm helping to, organize, what's the word? I guess thought leadership type material to help other product managers in the area, make sure that we're spreading around like best practices, new trends that are emerging, observations, and just getting people talking to one another, you know, because figure a rising tide will lift all boats. Um,
Yeah,
so
that's cool.
yeah, it's been really exciting.
Yeah, that is really awesome. That's just super cool. Is that something that you had planned to do, or was that something that kind of you stumbled upon and you're like, I'm going to take my newfound leadership superpowers and apply it over there?
It just kind of happened. You know, I started talking to them because they needed help with their website.
Yeah.
And then as we're talking about the website, I'm like, hey, you know, did you think, like, what about this? What do you think? What are your thoughts about this? Oh, that's cool. Like, you know, like, sure, you want to do something with Twitter? Go ahead. Like, here's the Twitter account. Um, you know, and then it just
Hmm.
sort of became more, you know, and then just having conversations with people, um, just, just because, you know,
Yeah.
because and that's the other thing that I just like really took from the program is it's like, I know that like networking is a thing that people should do, right? But it always just felt very like fake.
Yeah.
But what I realized is that I actually have been doing like the right kind of networking like all of these years. It's just that I just saw it as like hanging out with my friends,
Yeah. Hmm. You
you
didn't
know?
label it as networking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once I was able to more consciously be like, you know, no, this is like networking. You know, networking is like having like actual relationships with people and helping each other
Right.
out, you
That's
know.
right. Yeah.
Um just, you know, it doesn't have to be this weird thing where I'm like, you know, I am a product manager. You are a person that is doing hiring. Let us communicate.
Right.
You know, and
Yeah.
then it's just like, hey, tell me about that time that you did that, that you were handling this thing that you were talking about earlier. Like, that sounds like really hard. How did you handle this obstacle? And just
Hmm.
being like genuinely interested in like what other people are doing. Like, what a concept, right? Um,
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
that was really a game changer, and it just opened up doors that I did not expect to open up.
Yeah, including being on this board of directors. So that's awesome. It sounds like you're
Yeah,
having a lot of fun with that as well as making a lot of impact, but also having fun as well. So
it is so much.
that's what's super cool about it.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
so much fun. I like, we actually recently had an event where Marty Kagan came down from, he founded Silicon Valley Product Group, and he wrote a book called Inspired, which is one of two books that I recommend to almost every single product manager that I meet. And
Mm-hmm.
so he, you know, was, you know, giving a long presentation about like some of his thoughts and his learnings and his just sort of framework and outlook on product management, and just spending like the hour beforehand just walking around the room talking to people, because there were so many people I had never seen at our events before, and just
Yeah.
being like, hey, like, you know, what's going on, like, tell me about what,
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, what's ahead of you for the new year. And every single person had an incredibly fascinating story to tell. And
Yeah.
you know, and it was just really great, you know. And
That's
it's like,
amazing.
and realizing after, like, no, that was actually all networking, you know.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And now you're aware of it, and now you can bring it to the next thing, the next big thing, whatever that might be.
Yeah, you know, and just and then like when you sending follow-up emails to people, now you can just be like, hey, we had this incredible conversation, thank you for that, like, I am thinking about this going into the new year, like, have a great one. And then, you know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
maybe later at some point, you know, I'll have like a professional reason to hit them up. But just the relationship part of it, and really understanding the importance of it and how it can work in a way that does not feel slimy.
Yeah.
It was just, yeah.
Yeah. And that's part of the personal transformation that I saw happen in you, where there were pieces, like if you listen to pieces of that story and then pieces of the story that you were telling earlier about how you originally got into product management, it's still the same
Oh,
Sarah, right? It's like,
yeah.
you know, it's like, okay, yeah, I'm just going to talk with people. I'm going to say, hey, why don't you do it this way? Hi, hey, why don't we chat? Right. And
Hmm.
it's you creating those opportunities by being you. But now it's like, it's upgraded. You're bringing that upgraded version of yourself to
Hmm.
those same kinds of conversations that you've been having across your entire career and probably your entire life. But now it doesn't feel icky or slimy because you have that increased skill set, but also that increased confidence and that increased sense of this is who I am, and I'm going to keep being me, just at a higher level. So I'm definitely seeing that happening, which is just really awesome to watch and to hear.
Oh,
So
thank you.
what else? What other wins would you like to share?
Well, let's see. So, I mean, at the company I'm at right now, we hadn't really had like a strict sort of product discipline. There was some idea that we kind of needed it. But, like the tech industry is full of organizations and companies and software products that, were created, that were a brilliant idea by an engineer that was, brilliantly engineered for a long time. And then you start trying to figure out like, okay, well, what happens next? And that's when a lot of times, like, organizations that have been traditionally engineering led start trying to involve a little bit more product thinking. It's a pattern I've just sort of observed from afar. And part of why I wanted to get involved in product, because it's like, this is like, I really like really interesting problems. And just trying to figure out like, okay, like, well, that's really weird and it seems really hard and it doesn't really seem like anybody knows what to do with this. Let's just keep pulling at this thread until we figure out where it goes. I just find that to be fun.
Yeah.
So I was one of the first product managers that were hired from the outside of the organization rather than promoted from within. And I mean, it wasn't just me by any means. But, there was like a group of us from early on. And, just starting to, try to figure out like, okay, well, what if we do this? How about we try this? I mean, how to sort of plant a product organization is not something that I really knew how to do. But there are all of these steps for like, well, how do I lead an effective meeting? Oh, okay. Like, what are ways where I can communicate in a way that makes it very clear what I'm trying to get across, rather than, hey guys, what do you think? It might be cool if we maybe, and then and then what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah. That works. It just takes a little bit longer and you're going to be pulling your hair out a little bit more through the process. So.
Yeah. So it's like, well, how do we just cut to the part where I'm explaining the idea that I had and trying to see if other people are on board with it. And then we figure out how we do it. Like, what if we just
done?
Yeah. What if we just cut to that part?
Yeah. Yeah. And me, I'm all about like, okay, what's the action, right? Like, we can talk all day, right? But like, what's the next action that's going to get us that result? So
exactly. And learning how to, still be, not a dictator, but to still be biased for action, and to advocate for myself in a way that doesn't feel slimy. Because it had just been so drilled into me, from working in the music industry. Like, well, if I don't want to do this, then like there's like 1,000 people behind me who are willing to do it for less. So it was like a sort of like self-worth thing that just sort of I drilled into my own head. But then just being able to stand up, be like, hey, you know what? Like, I actually know what I'm talking about. And I don't need you to take my word for it, because here's the data. And what if we try it? And if we hate it, we don't have to do it anymore. That's like, right. I have no attachment to it.
Like, I love it.
Like, I'm here to just try and serve whatever it is that we're doing. If the thing that I suggested works, cool. If it doesn't, I bet you have a better idea.
Yes, exactly. That's that Zen-like detachment to outcomes that we talk about all the time, where it's like, I'm going to be in there and I'm going to do everything that I can. I'm going to show up in the best way possible, the best leader possible. But it's like, okay, because when you're working with a team, sometimes it's not always your decision. Sometimes some things are going to work and some things aren't going to work. But that's what you just described right there, and the way that you described it. That's that I'm going to do it. I'm going to show up, and let's see how it goes. That's that's perfect. I love it.
Yeah.
And so speaking of well, I was going to say, speaking of results, right? Like what kind of can you you don't have to give away any trade secrets or organizational secrets or anything like that. But I'm curious, like, sort of building this product organization, right?
Yeah.
What kinds of things have been kind of the positive results have come out of doing that for your team, for your organization?
Well, a lot of it was just a lot of really slow building groundwork. Of just product was a new discipline for a lot of people. And there are already a lot of people who are just sort of intuitively doing a lot of these sort of practices, so it's not like and it's trying to be very careful not to come in and make people feel like, hey, I am here to make you obsolete, because that's not productive. So there was just a lot of like, so with the professional organization that I'm part of, we do like 6-ish workshops a year, and then like maybe 4 to 6 networking meetings where somebody will just like come and talk for an hour. And so every time we would have one of those, I would invite my colleagues, and then for everyone who couldn't attend, I would just come back and just sort of, hey, here's what I learned. And because I figured, I'm just trying to, bring this stuff to people, and, what's going to work and what's going to serve here will stick, and what isn't going to work and what, isn't going to stick that'll just sort of fall away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I was doing it for probably about, 6, 7, 8 months. And, so there's a particular like product management certification and education organization that was like coming to give some of our workshops. And then I one day heard that like the president of our company went to one of the workshops.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, this is very interesting.
Yeah.
And, I certainly can't say for sure that it was like my direct influence, because I certainly never had a conversation with the president of our company
To go and do this. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But it just felt like this great, like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
oh, things are happening. This is cool. It opened up.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. Oh, you're breaking up just a little
Yeah.
bit here, but I got that. And it actually, because your
Like
video right now is going a little bit in slow motion, but it was funny. It stopped right here. I was like, yay! That's cool.
Good.
Yeah, no, but right. But if you were part of, so this is what people often, sort of like, some people might say, oh, but it wasn't me. I didn't have anything to do with it. Right. But clearly, like, you were part of the group of people, and one of the key group of people who were spearheading this effort to say, look, product matters, and we're not trying to stomp all over you. We're trying to do this collaboratively. And then lo and behold, magically, right, the president of the company goes and, and looks into it more, right? And is suddenly, through she just decides to do it, right? Like, of course, right? That was completely not, an accident. So that's awesome to see that trickling down, but also, like, in this case, kind of trickling up as well. And then that's just going to create even more positive changes.
Yeah. So it was just really, really gratifying. Just be like, all right, like all these like weird meetings I've been holding where I just sort of talk to people about like, here's this thing I learned that's a little strange, but bear with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what I love about your story and your win, Sarah, is that it's like, it's easy. It's hard, and it was scary, and it was boundary stretching, but like, it's also easy, and it's just conversations. It's not networking. It's just me talking with people and creating relationships with people. So it sounds like you're really kind of getting into a flow with this, where if this is just through your language, I could tell, where it's like, yeah, this is fun. This is easy, even though simultaneously it's like, okay, this I'm gonna continue to do more and create more and reach that next level, because I know you're, knowing you're not just going to settle, right? And as you up level, there's going to be more and more, opportunities for you. So it's just great to see you grow, and I can't wait to celebrate more celebrations and more wins with you in the future. So
thank you. Yeah, and that's one of the things that I think really made the difference, like working with you and Rob versus like working with any other coach that I've ever even spoken to in the past, or like any book that I've read. Like, I was just, because before it was just I mean, I know all the tactics, like I know the playbook, right? Like I know I need to network. I know I need to like, you know, do cool stuff and make sure that people know about the cool stuff I did. Um, but the how, you know, and I don't know if it's like a sort of like permission to just like go out there and just like make a bunch of friends, and then like hopefully some of those friends can help you with your career. uh, you
Yeah.
know, like just like the way to approach it and the way to think about it, even just like as myself,
Yeah.
um like that made all the difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just been such an honor to be a part of that with you. Is
Mm.
is there anything else that you want to share? So the way I want to frame it is kind of
Yeah.
thinking about adding value and thinking about the people out there who are listening or watching. Um, Perhaps, you know, if they're listening to this, it's probably because they're in the PeopleStack universe and maybe you've been
Mhm.
listening to Rob and I and watching our content maybe for a little bit, maybe for years, who knows? Is there a message that you want to kind of send out there to like to listeners, just kind of like just say that this is my story and this is what I want to share.
Well, one thing that comes to mind, so my journey has certainly not been a straight line. You know, I as soon as I hit this like massively huge peak of like, oh my God, yes, I did it. I am a leader. This is awesome. I had a massive setback, and really had to do a lot of, you know, a second round of just like really deep introspection of like, okay, what is happening here and how do I fix it? And what was really remarkable to me is that like, even though I was experiencing the setback and things were really, really hard, um, I went back to just the exact same material and found more stuff, you know, and just in the stuff that was there
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
it had always just been there. But it was like, you know, because I think you even advised me at the time I was having this difficulty that the higher you climb, the harder it gets. And um, just the, you know, going through the program certainly isn't like a magic bullet, you know.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
There's
you
no
know,
magic bullet. There's no magic
yeah. And
bullet. Yeah.
things could still be very difficult. Um, but the great thing about having a strong system is that you can apply the system to almost any situation, including weird situations that come out of nowhere where you're just like, I don't know what to do with this.
Yeah, exactly. Hmm. And that's almost the way that I see it. Yeah, the higher you go, the more challenges, right? You're at higher heights now. Great. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, bring on the challenges. And but it's also about that unpredictable stuff, right? That we don't, like Rob and I, you know, we don't have a crystal ball. I wish we could,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
But it's more just about, you know, that personal that journey of personal transformation while also having that support and the content that's there to always kind of go back to
Mhm.
remind yourself. And now that new upgraded version of you can then watch that content again and say, oh wow, I never saw it like that before, or I hadn't experienced this the first time, excuse me, the first time I watched this, I hadn't experienced this thing yet, right? But now I
Mhm.
have, and oh wow, I get it now. I can put
Yeah.
a whole new spin on it.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome, Sarah. That's awesome. Well, I think it's about time to wrap things up. And
Mhm.
you know, again, just thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me this evening. And yeah, we're gonna have you on again, maybe not a year and a half this time, to share even more of your wins because I know they're ahead of you.
Oh, thank you so much, Jen. I so appreciate everything.
Yeah, me too. All right, take care.
All right. Good night.